Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been like a month
Welcome
since
back.
we last recorded anything. It's
Yeah, real
long
life happens.
yeah, long story short, uh mechanical and technical problems also mixed with like real real world stuff, so it like didn't really like go well together.
Yeah, it doesn't make for conducive, easy recording.
So, I'm actually very glad we ended on the comic that we did for this week because I think it's quite important that we talk about where the story is actually going, where we are, because
Mhm.
we started getting Knuckles B-side stories ever since the for a little bit after the Knuckles Chaotix tie-in, and I'm gonna hold off on all of those, but I just wanted to say it's very funny to get back to this storyline because when I was first mentioning this podcast to someone, the first thing they said is, "So are you covering the Knuckles comics?" And I'm like, "Unfortunately, yes." It's like I have to.
Unfortunately, we have to.
It was like because the Knuckles storyline is one of the most is honestly like some of the most fascinating stuff in the old Archie comics for like the wrong reasons. But it's not terrible. It's just weirdly interesting. So we are going to talk about that, but I think we should rather talk about the actual comics before we start talking about like the B-sides. Sorry, the interludes that
Yeah,
are the Knuckles Chaotix interludes.
yeah,
Uh
because that's what they are at this point.
yeah. So let's start with issue 30 if we would. Uh
Okay.
the one thing that you instantly notice like picking up issue 30 is that the Archie Comics signature like joke corner box is gone. And you instantly just go, something's up. And it instantly feels off, and you realize that it's because we have now stepped into this new era for Sonic the Hedgehog, where there really isn't turning back from the serialization of the series at this point. And it's slowly moving away from just pure comedy to a sort of like weird drama mix at this point. And just
Yeah,
the subtle removal of that box like tells so much about what it is.
and anytime it returns, it's like not going to be as serious of an issue.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on this one? Because I have a lot of thoughts on this.
I my thoughts are this is a pretty good issue because it starts to set up seeds of what will be um what will be like future plot lines in this story. It will mostly be Snively's schemes are beginning to get less haphazard and more like serious. And then we have the stuff going on with Chuck.
Which we're gonna get into some more stuff with Chuck, which I'm very glad that we actually got the second half of it in this like set of five, because I did
Yeah,
not know when Mutsky was also going to become disconnected as well. So to kind of
yeah,
explain, Uncle Chuck, because of a quirk in what's going on, basically breaks his programming. And Sonic is sitting there. I'm jumping a little bit into the comic, but he's sitting
What
there.
what happens is they do a test and the test fails because Eggman gets impatient.
Yeah,
And not only is Eggman being troned into his own system, but Chuck is also freed.
Yeah,
in
he's
this.
he's freed from his programming for a bit, and Sonic is sadly reminiscing at the old the old chili dog stand that Chuck used to work at, that he would
It's
moonlight
like
at.
nice of Robotnik to leave that up.
Yeah, it feels kind of weird that it's still there,
It's
but I
almost like he's like either neglectful to tear it down or he's just keeping it up to taunt Sonic.
and Uncle Chuck basically appears there and goes, "Okay, let me explain. So I don't really know what's going on, but here's what's going on with Robotnik and Sniffly, and what they're working on could potentially destroy the planet. So I just needed to let Sally know what's going on, and
Uh-huh. Because he wants to instantly take the information he knows to the person he knows can do something about the information.
meanwhile,
Because
back with
Sonic, yeah,
yeah,
well, it's because Sonic thinks fast. Sally's the actual planner, and Chuck knows that.
yeah. Meanwhile, back with Snively, he's wearing a shrunken down version of Robotnik's outfit. And
And taunting him too.
I mentioned this before, but
It's quite
it
good.
is really interesting that they're starting to go with a lot more of the designs with from the Sat AM series, where it's like, oh, that's the classic giant egg with the eyeball on it from Sat
Yeah.
AM, and it feels
It's
interesting to
also
see it.
it's also the one that they use in Sonic Underground as well.
Did they use it in Sonic Underground? I'm not
Yes, it's
fully
just the
sure.
colors look different and there's like more buildings at the side of it. Here, let
Okay.
me look it up.
So basically what happens is that Sonic tries to infiltrate into the
It
into
is.
like the
I'm
warehouse.
seeing it.
Okay. He infiltrates into the
It's
warehouse and
way
he gets
more metallic in looks. It's also no, it's not in the OVA. I'm looking. The entire city kind of looks like it, but it's not in the OVA.
yeah, the OVA's design is
Or if
more
it is, it's like the frame of it is
yeah.
in there.
Uh oh yeah, I know which building you're talking about. It's more like a pyramid
Yeah,
almost in the OVA. Uh
yeah, huh.
so Sonic gets trapped inside the box as well, and Snively decided to mount it to the front of his vehicle so he could use it when he's clearing off. Because what's happening is that he's basically taking physical matter and he's shunting it into like a negative space. And
This certainly won't go poorly.
and he's doing this to clear the forest. So even if he misses, he will get something that is related to the freedom fighters, which, to be fair, is actually a really good idea if it wasn't, going to break the universe if he keeps doing this.
Robotnik even tells him that. It's like there's a reason I haven't used it for that yet. He
And
tried a massive freeze ray and he won't try this. Maybe Snively should stop and think about that.
and while Snively is like fighting with like Sonic on like a verbal joust sort of way, he's dog fighting with Uncle Chuck up in like a commandeered in a commandeered like vehicle. And then out of nowhere, Robotnik falls through the ceiling.
It's quite funny.
And it's like, wait,
It's
what?
because I think, yeah,
And he goes like, is like, yeah, Uncle Chuck regained his free will and let me go. Because even he can understand that this is a better outcome than just letting you do whatever. I was like, oh.
that makes
And
sense.
Robotnik says something that I specifically wrote down as one of the uh some of the most it is peak Sat AM writing like in this scene, and he says this. He goes, "In exchange for my freedom, I had to promise not to harm the freedom fighters or you, Snively, and this time I'm going to keep my word so that you can spend many happy years together while I make your life miserable." And I'm like, what a
It's great. I love that. It brought a smile to my face. It's like that's the wacky content I need again.
yeah,
It's so wacky and I love it.
it's so great because you could hear the SatAM Eggman voice coming through that line. It's so great.
It is.
So while Snively and Robotnik are doing whatever they're doing, Uncle Chuck is returning to like his ways of making chili dogs, which is a little bit nice, but there isn't really
Hmm.
too much to write home about that.
Yeah.
So the B side is actually a very quick B side, written by a new writer and drawn by Spaziante, which is very fascinating that this is the first thing that
I
we get
love
of this
that
guy.
he's I love that he's getting to do the inside of the comic now instead of just the outside
Yeah.
because his art plays really well in the story. Like he
So
just has dynamic movement. And I love that. I always know where characters are going.
he also draws Robotnik as a literal mountain of flesh, and it's always so fascinating whenever he gets really close to the camera. And
Yeah, it looks like he's just about to like devour the entire page with how evil he is.
yeah. So it's a small little comic. It's Robotnik getting upset that like one of his emerald vaults of like these small tiny little emeralds that only have like a fraction of power in them, but they're still useful for like powering things or keep getting stolen. And so he sends coconuts to go figure it out, and particularly
I guess
coconuts fails everything.
I guess Snively was sick that day.
Yeah. And expectantly, he mulches coconuts into a metal grinder, I guess. It wouldn't be a meat
Except for
grinder.
his head.
Yeah.
He keeps that.
And uh and it cuts to one final panel, and it reveals that the people that have been giving him the runaround were
It's
Sally
funny.
and Bunny, that were just doing it because the emeralds looked nice and they were using it for a charity event that they were running. And I'm like, I I guess this is a win?
Well, it unlike the last time with the dolls, it actually made Bunny look really competent.
Yeah. And
Like
it's really
it's just her on the mission. Sally's not there.
Oh, is it just Bunny? I thought it was also Sally.
It's just her. I was looking at the camera feeds and it's very clearly Bunny.
Considering
Like all of the silhouettes have her ears. There's no silhouette without the ears. So if there's a second person, Coconuts is unaware of them.
but yeah, it's really
And
nice
she's
that
also not wearing the emeralds either.
Oh, I guess you're right. But yeah, it is really funny how it's just uh this short little story. And if I would say that the A side of the story is a very Sat AM type of story, uh
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
the B side is a very AO Sith type of story. And they go
Hmm.
really well together with the way that they're written and the story context. And I kind of have to give, like, I wrote down in my notes while I was reading it that I gave this issue a, oh my gosh, what's going on with my stuff? Uh, I gave this issue in my
Well,
notes a gold, but I
I can
think
see that.
uh I
I
kind
gave it
of,
a silver.
yeah, I kind of
'Cause
wanted to give it a silver too, but like as I was like rereading it, I kind of wanted to give it a gold because it's probably some of the best type of writing brought from Sat AM and those like and the cartoons over into the comics stuff. I honestly would give someone this comic as like a starter for like what is the
it
vibe
is
of
quite
old
good.
Archie Sonic, and it's this. It's like this is what I remember the
I
Sonic comics being.
I you've talked me into it. I will agree. I think I was going silver because there's just too many shots of the inside of Robotnik's mouth, and I can see his back teeth, and I'm deeply unhappy every time I see it.
Oh, don't worry, we're
But
gonna
I
get
can give
less
that a
happy
gold.
about the shots of the inside of someone's mouth in a bit. Uh,
Oh, I know. Oh, I know.
so you also you get a silver or
It's right on the line for me between very high silver and gold, and that's where I'll put it.
okay. So I was looking at maybe playing some of Knuckles Chaotix at some point between uh oh gosh, while like all this was going on, while I was on like hiatus and stuff, but I never actually got around to it. Oh my gosh,
It's been a very busy couple of weeks, especially the last 2 weeks.
yeah, and it was kind of hard, but
One day we will play the games in sequence.
yeah,
That day is not today.
so I I have mixed feelings on the Knuckles Chaotix adaptation. And it's not even like, oh, they did the game wrong. It's mostly because I've read the Sonic the comic uh adaptation of Knuckles Chaotix, and I feel like they did the game a little bit more justice. But as
Well,
a
it's hard
complete,
to compete with the game tie-ins on that comic run.
yeah, I would say except for I would say except for Sonic Adventure 1, which I think both of them do that game a disservice. I I would say that Sonic the Comic probably has better adaptations, but overall, the Archie Sonic comics utilize them well in later comics down the line. You know,
Yeah. Hmm.
uh, the British Sonic comics often just came off as very episodic, and they were very. It was very awkward to kind of jump into that halfway through, and they're just like, oh, am I gonna get like a rebreather, a
A
um, a
recap.
a recap on what's happening? And they're like, no, why would you need that? And I was like,
Uh,
okay, I guess.
why would you need that? Haven't you been reading our comics for ages?
Yeah.
Are
So,
you a child?
so my first criticism that I had with this is that the opening text on this comic is so hard to read. I had to like squint very hard to read that whole thing. It's
As
uh
someone who is has like a tinge of color blindness, this isn't the worst color foul I've seen. But on like the edges, like I think it's like the left edge, that's like miserable. Not only do I have to scroll in all the way in, but I have to squint if I'm not wearing my glasses.
because what's happening is that it's black text on a pastel background, and you'd be like, "Oh, it's easy to do that, right?" It's like, no, the text is so small, it's hard to read, and it's like, especially when it starts intersecting with like character action faces that are on it. It's pretty bad if you've ever read it.
Oh yeah,
So,
I have.
so we have the introduction to a place that we are sadly going to see a few times. This is the Carnival Zone. I actually forget what it's called, but it is a large amusement park that is on Angel Island. And when it opens, immediately characters from like all over the Archie comics are there. Like you see Amy for a little bit, you see the trainee freedom fighters and like all that kind of stuff. So you go, okay, everyone is here, everything's going on. I do not trust this rat.
No, they drew him sleazy like a car salesman on purpose.
They drew him like a I'm trying to remember the actual like name of it. He looks like he would fit in well with the Great Mouse Detective. It's like, oh, I see, you're the villain of this
Yeah,
week.
he
You
would
got
be
it.
one of those henchmen. Yeah. Uh-huh. He
And
would be one of the henchmen.
and all of the characters get tricked into going into the Hall of Mirrors, in which they are then trapped inside of the mirror dimensions. And for some reason, Knuckles is not affected, but his ability to punch stuff has been removed. Like his uh
I don't know, like the color of like his face has been like removed. Like his muzzle color is gone in one of those panels. So maybe that's how they took his strength.
yeah. Um but it's really interesting because we now finally get the full introduction to the Chaotix, which we saw like a little bit of them like interacting earlier in like some of the Knuckles B-sides, but
Yeah,
this is their full introduction. So you have Charmy, who is the bee, you have Espio, who is the chameleon, you have Vector the crocodile, you have Mighty the armadillo, and then you have Heavy and Bomb, which are Robotnik's semi-sentient robots that are basically just defecting at this point, which is a
yeah.
very fascinating thing that happens in the game, which I cannot remember what their affiliation in the game is, but it's always really fascinating when you see, oh no, these aren't like Mobians who have been roboticized. These are just robots that are just going off going off programming. And it's like weird that we got
Robotnik
that.
really should stop giving machines free will if he wants to conquer the world.
Yeah. And they specifically say that the reason why both of them have been granted consciousness is because they each have a power gem inside of them, which which is a very fascinating thing to think about, considering it's like, oh, huh. So these robots with power gems inside of them, I'm guessing, to supplement a less shoving tiny animal into robot type of things, is giving these robots sentience to the point where they have free will, which is a very
Yeah.
fascinating thing. And a they have one of the power gems on them, like inside of or at least a large amount of like it says that they have a cache of experimental weapons, but we don't really see most of it. We mostly just see them utilizing the power gems to augment their strength and utilizing the chain, which I forget what the purpose of the chain was in the game as well, but it certainly
You
was.
probably should have played the game. If only my brain would let me do that.
But this is the important thing. Right after this, the rat, who of course he would turn against he would be working with Robotnik, uh is talking with him, and Robotnik notices that the chaotics are doing stuff. So he unleashes Metal Sonic uh back into things to fight against them. He refers to it as Mecha Sonic, but it's the same Metal Sonic
Well, it's Metal Sonic. Yeah.
as 25. Uh it's very strange. I I once watched a whole deep dive onto what is the actual distinction between the different metal and mecha sonics, and where do the silver sonics come in? And it's like, okay, and then they like pull up the like whole chart of the different types of metal sonics that have appeared throughout the years, and like connecting the
Yeah,
dots to all of them.
like they're forming like a kingdom and species of like each one, and it's like, okay, so if it's got four toes, it's this one.
Yeah. But there's a really great visual of when Vector is fighting Metal Sonic, and he basically uses the connected rings to launch Metal Sonic towards Mighty. Mighty then hits him, and then there's a expanded out like panel of Metal Sonic going through like three different things and then just like landing on the other side, only for um only for Bomb to self-destruct right next to him, taking him out. And I'm like, well, that was pretty good. Flip the page. Oh, hey, here's the final boss. And I just blinked at it going, what?
What happened to Bomb Guy? Is he alive?
But it's just so sudden
Is he
that it's
dead?
just like, oh,
Yeah,
there he is.
yeah. And
And
thankfully, he does survive the self combusting explosion.
yeah. And so Knuckles grabs onto one of the power gems that he was looking at earlier, and using it gets really big so that he can have a fist fight with this robot. And in the collateral, he knocks the giant red uh Metal Sonic into the Hall of Mirrors so that all the mirrors would shatter with all the characters. And the second that he gets his Knuckles back, he literally just rips the robot apart.
Yeah,
And then Robotnik takes off in a an escape vehicle, and the rat gets caught. So
yeah.
that's something.
Done and dusted.
It's it's kind of interesting because there's this whole B-side with uh
I like the Muppets who were like arresting the rat in the background of one of these panels. I quite like that.
yeah, they really do look like
There's
Muppets.
just a Muppet dude.
Um, we're gonna talk about this B-side that is in Knuckles Chaotix when we get to uh Supersonic versus Hyper Knuckles. But for right now, if we were to exclude that, what would you give this? Because I gave it a very firm
It's a
silver.
silver.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a silver. Even with the second half of it, it's still a silver.
yeah. Oh, speaking of games, did you actually try out any of the older games recently, or still haven't like
I've
been
been
able to?
trying to, but I still haven't been able to.
That's fair. I thought I might as well ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so man. Okay, so I want you to say something nice about issue 31 before we rip into it,
Let me look.
because I know exactly what you're gonna
I
say.
mean, they left Anton alone, so I liked that one. They made Anton look kind of competent.
Okay, so this entire comic is drawn by Penders, and
Oh, I wonder what could have given that away.
it's not distracting. Okay, it's a
No,
little
it's it's
distracting.
it's it's very. Don't lie.
Okay, this entire comic is a little distracting at points with the way that it's drawn, and it's always the problem with Ken's art style where he makes the characters look a little bit weird every single time. And you could definitely tell that he's a writer first and an artist like distant second, but at least he is
Distance.
able to draw. You know, it's not like he's making
Yeah,
stick figures and putting it up there. He can actually draw. It's just that he doesn't draw faces well, and sometimes bodies either.
yeah.
And
He draws backgrounds all right.
for now, for
This
now,
is
he's
true.
remembering to draw backgrounds. Uh,
I mean, the robot looks like a robot. Robots are hard to draw.
okay, so I feel like that I am missing a reference here because okay, so the entire plot of this issue is that there is a high-speed train that Sonic and Sally are trying to infiltrate so they can take out Robotnik's experimental robot before it activates. Unfortunately, it activates and they fight everything. It feels like I am missing a reference
You
because
mean the
this is
Mission
the
Impossible
no
reference
no
with
no
the jet and the
no this is the third giant golden robot that Robotnik has used, and I don't know if it's like some sort of old comic reference from like DC era or stuff or something
I mean, it
else, but
probably is.
it feels weird that it's like, oh, a giant golden robot. Interesting that we're back to this. It's kind of more like a spider than a giant gorilla this time at least. Joffrey St. John is in this in this comic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the biggest problem.
Uh, yeah. I mean, Tony
Uh,
Stark's
like
first outfit was kind of goldenish in some of the comics.
so I'm gonna bring this up later, but it's really fascinating that they're starting to write Sonic as this like very narcissistic, jealous person, and it feels like a
Well,
weird
it was
pivot for
in a
him.
contest for Sally to go for Sonic if Sonic wasn't like an asshole. So to make Joffrey even seem like he could come in second place, something has to be done to Sonic. It's writing 101. It's like the old conundrum between King Arthur and Lancelot, right? If you want to make Lancelot look good, you have to make King Arthur look bad,
Uh, yeah,
and
I've
vice
always felt
versa.
that that's kind of weird. Like you can have both characters
Yeah.
be like good and chivalrous, but have qualities that make them falter. Like you don't have to make
Not if you want it to be a contest in the romance department, because like that's the secondary issue with this as
yeah.
well.
The other way you could do that is you can write different characters' perspectives at different times. So it's like, oh, this character feels out of place, but you say that about both sides, and then you realize, oh, it's because I'm getting it from that character's point of view. So I am seeing how the other person sees them. That could be a way that you could do that, but
You
in the
could, but you would need to write relationships well in order to do that first.
yeah, all that Ken Penders really wrote is that uh Joffrey is very aggressively flirty to Sally, and she partially does not reciprocate. She's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then she just basically walks away. But she allows him to be flirty. And so it comes off as like, oh, she's doing this just to get at Sonic, isn't it? And the Sonic is like, she's doing this to bug me. Why is she doing this to bug me? What's going on? And that's like where most of the love triangle is. It's Sally is
Yeah.
annoyed that Sonic is not putting anything into their budding relationship. Even though they haven't stated anything, she is acting like there is some sort of relationship. But in the meanwhile,
Because to be fair, there is. To
she's gonna
be fair, there is.
yeah, there is tinges of a relationship, especially with stuff like the Sally miniseries. Sorry, not the miniseries. The Nicole backstory side side story. Where you have like Sonic being actually like a little bit romantic to her, and she's completely with it. But then you see her interaction with Joffrey, and then you go, "Yep, these are definitely written by different people, and they are butting up against each other." Isn't that fascinating? But yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Sonic comes off as like he's egocentric and jealous, but he's right. She's doing this for no reason for some she's doing this for seemingly no reason, and she's not even like playing into it. And it gets awkward.
Well, yeah, because Sonic is being a concerned friend about the whole thing too.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so what is the only things that we can take from this comic afterwards, after the robot's defeated? Um a pop culture reference to Jean-Claude Van Damme and a weird love triangle. That's about it. There isn't too
Yeah.
much in this comic. I would give it a bronze, even before talking about
Yeah.
the Rotor side story.
Yeah.
Like same.
Yeah.
Uh, to kind of talk about the Rotor side story as we slowly shift into issue 32, there is a distinct there's a distinct feeling that they wanted to do a three-part miniseries with every single main character of the freedom fighters. They started with Sally because she's the most important character to the group besides Sonic, who is always going
Uh-huh.
to get like the focus. And then they did Tails because he's
Yeah.
important to the actual like games. And it felt like what they were doing with Rotor is they were going to set up a three-part story in which he saves his family. And they were probably going to do the same thing with Antoine and Bunny, but it felt like someone like pulled the plug on it saying we can't keep doing miniseries for all these characters. We're not getting as good of sales as we thought. So how about we just relegate all of that to just the to the background of actual stories? Which honestly is kind of a better option, but it feels more prestigious to have a miniseries, you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So basically, what happens is that Rotor gets a call from his family, and basically saying that they're being rounded up by Robotnik's minions up in the Arctic, and they are basically there to be I forget what they I forget how they worded it. It's they're being used for labor up in the cold conditions because the robots can't handle cold weather as much. And
Yeah,
so having roboticized Arctic Mobians is more useful than having a robot itself up there. And so instead of fully roboticizing them, he's gonna just mind control them to do stuff so they keep like the winter protection while keeping them in that sort of like pseudo robotic state. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. And to kind of jump the gun a little bit, they when they basically round up all those people and basically just set them off on an iceberg out into the middle of the water so that they can't hurt themselves or Rotor, it feels kind of sad because it's like, oh, uh, I hope they're okay.
yeah.
And it's like, I really do hope that this, that they, I don't think they're going to like be like starving out there or like need sustenance since they're robotic, but it is really awkward to just see a bunch of walruses just out there like mindlessly like standing around not knowing what to do as they just like get pushed out. But yeah, to kind of let me just jump to issue like 32. Uh
Yeah.
so uh Rotor gets like knocked into the water and he is then saved by the Arctic freedom fighters. And I'm gonna bring this up later, but he
Which
then
is nice to see them again.
yeah, and the first thing he does when he sees the seal, I forget her name, he immediately starts yelling in French, and I instantly went, wait, what? And something in my brain later on ticked and went, wait, is Rotor Canadian? Is the idea
Well,
that he's French Canadian?
also, well, there could be that, and also Anton speaks French.
Yeah, and it's very awkward to see Rotor like suddenly start speaking French when he's never really been that type of person. But then I think about the fact that he's a walrus up in the Arctic, and I'm like, it would be funny if he's from like Nova Scotia or something.
Yeah,
So, so yeah, like they Rotor basically leaves a tracker with his brother and mom as they shove off all of these like roboticized Arctic Mobians like off onto an iceberg. And he's like, I hope I'll be able to find you later. Um, sorry that I can't really do much for you right now. And it's a very sad note to leave on, which I was not. I kind of forgot that this is how they left Rotor's story for, I think, a good 200 issues. They did
yeah.
not come
It's
back to this
it's
for a
a
very long time.
while.
Like, I think
Yeah,
they don't.
and I
Uh,
think this comes up as a plot that they left it for a while.
yeah, and I think they don't even get back to this until maybe even uh the start of Ian Flynn's run actually. Like it's a very
Yeah,
long time to get
because
back to this
Ian
story.
Flynn, because Flynn is like one of the only ones who remembers these plot points because he was reading the comics.
Yeah. Uh I will say though, it is really fascinating to kind of like look at this again and then go, we will talk about this some other point, hopefully, who knows? But yeah,
Hopefully, if
issue
we
th
remember.
yeah, issue 32. One of the weirdest side stories that actually sticks around for a bit in the Archie comics is Moby, the prehistoric Mobian bear that they unfreeze out of the ice. And I just need to read this on my notes. Considering these last two comics, they feel very Silver Age DC, and I don't know why.
And then we get to the man out of time,
Yeah, I
which seems like should have been the name of it, but it was probably being used by other comics at the time.
yeah, and the whole thing is that like Moby is running around, not really being able to communicate with Sonic and the others, so they have to kind of use pictograms to kind of explain what's going on. But whenever they try to go like, no, 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 we're friends. See, we're like holding hands and stuff. He immediately takes that to, I really miss my family. I need to figure out a way to get back. And in the scuffle, Mutski shows up, fully roboticized, and attacks Sonic. And because of light concussive force to it, knocks its programming loose, uh, so that Chuck, when he reprograms it, can actually be like the normal dog again, which is very relieving. And then they
It
throw Mo,
is.
and then they decide to send
And they
Moby
really
to a
carried it
yeah, they send Moby to
to a
a
farm
remote
upstate.
forest. Yeah, a forest upstate.
He goes to a farm upstate.
And
And surely we never see him again.
nope, never again. I gave it a pretty
Never
low.
again.
Uh, I'm gonna be real. The only reason why I'm giving this a silver and not a bronze is because of the part in the Rotor side story where Robotnik is sitting there going like, "Okay, so what's up?" And the robots that are up there are basically like, "We got a gift from the Arctic Trojans. It's this big horse." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, my robots are idiots." And then
Shouldn't have programmed them to be so dumb.
The Arctic Freedom Fighters like burst out, and then it's just a panel of Robotnik covering his face, going, "Oh, there is so much violence on TV nowadays." And I'm like, okay, the comedy is kind of on point in this one, so I have to at least give it
Yeah,
that. But it was really, it is kind of, oh, that was another really good part where Rotor is just like panicking, just being like, "You need to help me right now." And the seal is like kind of like worried, is like, "You probably shouldn't do that." It's like, what? And then he gets picked up by the polar bear as like threatening gestures make him get mad. And I'm like, oh right, that's what,
yeah.
because that's the whole thing with polar bears, is that like unlike black bears and grizzly bears, you can't just like pretend to be big to scare them away. They would take that as a
Because they're bigger
challenge.
and they know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're bigger and they know it.
So what did you give this one? Did you give it a bronze or
Yeah, this one unfortunately gets a bronze. Um, it's really hard to disconnect this row through story from all the garbage that they put his character through with no resolution.
mm-hmm.
And it's hard to disconnect that. And I'm really trying, but I'm like, it's a bronze.
Yeah, again, I would give it a bronze too if I didn't chuckle several times during Rotor's B-side. Okay, so oh man, I kind of want to skip this one because if people know about me, I am fairly squeamish as a person. Like anything involving like sickness and like stuff like that automatically gets under my skin. Like so when I saw the cover and it's clearly like Sonic inside of someone's stomach, I'm like, this is gonna be a hard read. I'm gonna just say right now
Yeah.
that I started off as a bronze, and if I didn't like the B-side as much, I would have not given it a silver. I am telling you right now, the last two issues basically were carried by their B-sides. and
Yeah.
it's a very fascinating thing. So I'm gonna just skip the A side story, so I don't have to talk about it for a bit. In fact, not even
Yeah.
gonna look at the cover
Here's
for a
the
bit.
summary of here's the summary. It's Robotnik inflicts food poisoning to try and kill the freedom fighters, and the only one who doesn't get sick is Sonic, who has to go in and kill the virus himself. That's the summary.
And then
That's
there's a
the
bunch of
entire
French
comic.
jokes for some strange reason, and I'm like, oh wait, is Rotor actually like French Canadian, which is why all of the stuff inside of his body is French? Weird. What a weird joke. Um, but yeah, there was a really interesting callback to the Universal Salamander, if you remember, where they have the
Yeah.
shrinking ray from that fight, which he
Uh-huh.
used to crush it, and it's like, oh, they're using that to the strange journey their way into his body. Okay, well, how fascinating.
Yeah.
And some people are gonna get a kick out of the antibodies joke, but I'm just like I'm like this comic by itself already has a lot of puns. Don't like layer another one on me, please, because I'm not really one for like pun heavy stories.
Oh.
Because
Well, I'm glad I'm here then.
so the B side story. So Sonic and the rest of the gang are out on a frozen lake and they are playing hockey. Uh, French
Hmm.
Canadian, I guess. And they are they're playing, and then suddenly Snively is there. I was like, "What, Snively? What are you doing there?" And he goes,
With robots.
"Yeah," and he's like, "Guys, today is my day off. Can we just play a fun game of hockey? I've missed doing anything that isn't work for a very long time." And I'm like, "You know what? Fair, fair, Snively."
And even if he tries something, they outskill him so poorly.
Yeah, and of
It's
course
almost like he knows he's gonna lose.
the thing that becomes the whole crux of the B side is that Robotnik says through the robots, "Oh, and if you lose, I will immediately capture you right now." And Snively's like, "Uh, I'm probably not even gonna let them do that." It's like, "Don't worry about it."
my it's my day off.
Yeah, it's just kind of an interesting little like B side because you don't um in early Archie comics you don't really see the sort of like non-evil side to Snively. You see a lot more of him being a an actual functioning member of society later on in the comics, but for now it's
But yeah,
very fat.
when he's trying to clean up his act and then that fails, Harley Quinn style. But it's pleasant to see that he has a secondary character to him
Yeah.
besides cowardly underling.
And this combined with the story from 30, you see a lot more of Snively than you've ever really seen him before, and it's kind of neat. I kind of like what they're doing with him.
Yeah, Sniffly has some of the best moments in this run of comics, and
And
I
we're
appreciate that.
and we're not even getting to like the weird stuff with Snively later on, like individually tracking
Uh,
his hairs or stuff like that. Like this is just him back in the
I'm gonna
older days.
lose my mind at that comic.
I
I I use that comic as like a reaction gif because of one of I've sent you that one. Can we have that like on screen at some point, please? I love it so much.
meanwhile
It's just
I
Tails' face.
just
Yeah,
send
I see it. It's so funny.
yeah. Let me see if I
Tails'
could.
reaction was my reaction.
Yeah, it's just like
Oh,
it is.
wait, what?
It is unironically probably the best reaction image ever. Like
Hmm.
let me just pull it up really
Oh,
quickly.
it fills me with joy every single moment I see it. It's that one and the face Shadow makes at Marine is
Yeah.
pretty good. I
Shadow,
love both of them.
not Australian appreciator. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, as I was kind of saying, there is a very noticeable there has been a very noticeable shift in Sonic, both as a storyline and as a and kind of as a character right now, where we are seeing a lot
Well, they're
more
giving
of,
him more emotion,
well, as in the characters in
and
Sonic.
not all of it is good.
I am personally really liking where they're going with this stuff right now, but we are
I do
definitely gonna
too.
have to
Yeah.
wait a little bit to really
Yeah.
showcase a lot of this stuff. But we kind of
There's
have to,
definitely some growing pains with these characters.
speaking of growing pains, we have to talk about the biggest, most golden elephant in the room. I loved Supersonic versus Hyper Knuckles, which is why I'm so disappointed to say there's
Yes, I
basically nothing in this whole comic. So
yeah, it's really quite tragic.
So, okay, so if you don't know, this whole thing is predicated on the fact that Knuckles is trying to look for a new power source. He's trying to figure out any sort of way to, if I remember correctly, he's trying to amplify the abilities of the Master Emerald right now. And he goes, "Okay,
Uh-huh.
so I could get another emerald, but we could just run into the situation where we had before, where the island could blow up because we add too much chaos energy to it. So why don't we just get a bunch of rings? So where do we find a bunch of rings?" And I go, wait, is this the first time that the comic has brought up the concept of using rings in conjunction with chaos energy? I think this might be, besides, that one time that Sonic went super before, where he just casually said, and I collected 50 rings. But this is the first time that they were actually
Yeah.
including the concept of rings. Because in Sat AM, uh, Uncle Chuck invented a sort of well of sorts for for rings, and using that, Sonic could use these rings to become invincible for just a little bit of time, and it's the way that he basically activates his greater spin abilities. In the comics, they don't really do that as much. We showcased it one point during the beginning miniseries where he uses a ring to kind of redirect Robotnik's ball and chain. But besides that, we haven't really touched on rings too much. And so for rings to pop up
Yeah.
in this became instantly fascinating. So
Oh yeah.
basically what happens is that Knuckles goes to what we later call the Lake of Rings, and because of
Uh-huh. They
shenanigans,
call it yeah,
because of
they call it the
shenanigans,
grotto at this point.
yeah, they it is uncovered that there is an action stage below the lake, and it's full of both rings and the
Yeah,
miniature
Sally basically
emeralds.
has to stop them in their fight because they are doing catastrophic damage
Okay,
to the landscape that has been trying to grow back.
so the kind of backtrack a little bit to explain what's going on. Sonic, Sally, and Tails, who comments about his miniseries adventure during all of this, I noticed in a single word bubble that everyone just kind of ignores, uh, is that they're worried that Knuckles is going back into Robotnik's territory. So Sonic is worried that uh, he's gonna try to work with Robotnik again. So he's immediately on aggro to fight him, and Knuckles is just standing there doing nothing, and then out of nowhere he just uppercuts him, and Sonic then pulls out a
Yeah,
notification from Princess Sally going, I hereby, Princess Ellie, blah, 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 I promise not to hurt you, crumples up the note. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I think I wrote down in my notes, the legal notice of beating your ass.
That is what it is.
Uh, but Knuckles is completely in the right here. He's like, I'm just
Oh
out
yeah,
in
Sonic
public.
came out of nowhere,
I'm out in public
minding my
doing
business.
nothing, and you just come up and attack me. What the heck, dude?
And he's so justified. And Knuckles is so angry. He
So,
sticks Sonic into a tree, basically.
yeah, and because the tree gets uprooted, they find the action stage, and Knuckles dives down to start collecting a bunch of rings because that's his whole goal here. And
Yeah, and it's the only thing he wants, and then he'll go home.
and Sonic is about to dive down too, but he immediately pulls himself back up because he caught a slight thing that Sally says, so he has to like climb his way back up and going, "Okay, can you repeat that?" And she goes,
What about you and Knuckles?
and it's like, "Oh yeah, me and Knuckles used to hang out as kids when we were little." And he's like,
She doesn't
"Wait, why
tell him
have you
that,
never
but
brought this
that's what.
up?" And she basically just says, Sonic, I don't have to tell you about every little relationship I've ever had with anybody, even if slight. And he's just like, well, okay, then I'm gonna just go down and just do my job, I guess. And it's like, calm down, Sonic.
Well, remember, they're trying to make him into an asshole.
Yeah, it's a very funny jealous streak that he's building up for every single character that's even remotely around Sally. And if she was okay, if I'm gonna just say this right now.
If they weren't children,
If someone who was I'm gonna say this in a less than nice way. If someone who was competent at writing romance was on staff, they definitely would have had Sally basically pull him aside, going, "Do I need to explain this to you for a fifth time?" It was like basically like put like sit Sonic down, going, "You are changing your actions right now, or we're gonna have a bigger talk about this." Like basically give him some
hmm
kind of like emotional ultimatum at this point. But because the people on staff are not romance writers, they're never going to do that. Because
yeah. And one of them desperately wants to be, but he's really bad at doing it. He's so bad.
he's bad
He does he can't do it.
at like maybe like a
Well, he's
40
got
60%.
relationships that yeah, he's got relationships that don't involve Knuckles.
Sorry, it's a 70% of the time he writes them bad, 10% of the time he writes them okay, and 20% of the time he writes them in such a way that it's fascinating of how bad it is.
That is true.
Okay, so Sonic and Knuckles each independently gather up seven of these smaller, like, green emeralds, and they independently become Super Sonic and Hyper Knuckles, aka the name of the comic, and they just start fist fighting. For the next, I want to say like
As you do.
10 pages, it is nearly a full page spread of them just punching each other. And I love the
Yeah.
action into
Sometimes
it.
with rocks.
Yeah, I love the
Yeah.
action sequences that are in this comic, and I would recommend if you really like the action uh in the stuff around this era, I would recommend it. It is probably one of the best fight scenes that they have actually like drawn so
It's like a
far.
WWE fight is what it reminds me of. Like those like WWE matches back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
And
He hits him with the steel chair.
then Sonic and Knuckles hit each other so hard, all of the chaos energy in the area dissipates because they are using up so much of the energy, the entire zone collapses. And I'm like, that is an interesting to note for later.
Yeah, they might need that information perhaps
So
on a different engagement.
I am going to completely spoil a reveal that is so far later down the road that we're going to have to talk about again anyway. It's this whole thing is predicated onto the fact that both Knuckles and Sonic inherently have a lot of uh, chaos energy that was given to them by birth. And the only
Yeah,
reason why they are able to even take these super forms is because they're tapping into like their stores of chaos energy. Almost kind of like okay, fine. I'm gonna relate this to Naruto. Each one of them have basically have a have a little well of tailed beast energy inside of them, and they are tapping into it so they can go into these super forms. But because of that, it's
and
incredibly
Sonic
destructive
instead, yeah,
to
yeah,
whatever is around them. And
yeah,
Knuckles gets a lot of this energy dissipated out of him, but Sonic just keeps building this stuff later and later into the story. And when he finally dissipates that energy, it it causes such a big explosion that it literally rockets him into another part of the solar system. It is so fascinating, like to kind of like think about it, where it's like, man, they could have literally just destroyed the world with their little fight right here, and I don't think either of them really realized it at this point. Which
yeah. Well, it's also because neither of them have been taught how to dissipate chaos energy on that extreme. Knuckles has just been super lucky
um
for
meanwhile
the most
back with
part.
back with Robotnik, he's just like, okay, so what was going on? And his swap bot is like a bunch of chaos energy that was on the outskirts of your area just just appeared and then blinked out of existence. And Robotnik goes, you know what? I would be more mad at this, but I'm more mad that I only got one page the cameo in. I'm out of here.
It's great. He's like, I'll get my agent on the phone as he breaks his phone like a soda can.
So, before we dive into the Knuckles backstory B-sides, in this one,
Yeah, I
I
was wondering. Yeah,
I gave I gave this a gold, and it's mostly because it's just such a fascinating comic to look back at, like because of later lore reveals and all that kind of stuff. But it's also just a really
you
well
know what?
drawn and paced comic.
You know what? I agree. There was no like latent creepy Joffrey stuff going on. Sally was super competent, which she is and should always be depicted as being because she's the brains of the organization itself.
Her
You know,
her taking to the
Sonic
field
is
to break up
impulsive.
the fight is also really fascinating, where she's just like, nope, not having any of this.
It's
But
like
yeah,
you guys will destroy everything.
so
But yeah, I would agree.
so
It was a
uh
nice fight. It was engaging. I liked it.
So the Knuckles B-sides. If I were to give this all of the B-sides as a whole, I would give it a bronze, but we're not rating it
Yeah, thank you.
because it's its own thing. But just know that this is the millstone that the first Knuckles issue is going to be weighted on. All of this stuff right
Yeah,
here is leading up to the Knuckles side series, which we're also going to be
hmm
covering to its full extent. Um,
because we have to, because it starts to involve huge swaths of the plot.
Yeah, and if you're not
Like
following with the Knuckles side story, you
Knuckles'
start getting
nonsense
lost.
gets. Oh yeah, because Knuckles' backstory and his whole family trauma and the issues he's got going on
Yeah, because if you're not paying
just
attention,
becomes so mired in everything.
suddenly Sonic turns around and goes, "Hey, what's up?" And then they remove their hood and they go, "Sonic, I hate to tell you this, but Knuckles is dead." And he goes, "What? What? What?" And it's just like, wait, how was I supposed to know
He
that?
makes
And
that
then he
face.
looks right at
He
the
makes
screen, going, "You would know this if you were reading the Knuckles side comic." And I'm like, oh my
yeah,
gosh. But okay, so to kind of sum up what's going on with the side stories, the Chaotix are basically like lounging around and kind of sparring a little bit uh, to because they don't really have anything to do right now, so they might as well just
yeah,
keep their strength up for the
just
next
like
time that Angel Island is in danger. But
yeah,
suddenly,
because like
each
the only thing that they've got to do is just they can't do crime because they're good guys. So they'll just have wrestling matches in the middle of the forest, as you do, because they're too old to be damming up the river at this point.
so one by one, each of the members of the Chaotix disappear, and we don't really know where they're going just yet. But Knuckles is noticing that they're all just like disappearing, and he's like, okay, what's going on? And he starts getting calls from Archimedes, who we have not seen yet, but he has definitely been leaving his notes everywhere, going, okay, I'm going to come to you eventually, Knuckles. Just sit tight, I'm preparing some stuff. And he's like, okay, should I be worried? And he's taking this as a
It's like
threat.
this seems like a threat. Well, yeah, because his new friends are vanishing into thin air, and someone is throwing bricks at him with the kidnapper's name on them. That
And
sounds like a threat to me.
you then have yeah, and then uh you keep having these shots to this room full of monitors. And Archimedes is staying there and he's always in shadow. And he keeps telling everyone, like, okay, you've got to sit tight. Plans are in motion that I cannot explain to you right now. And he's being very cryptic about it, and no one understands what's going on. But then we get an an outward shot of someone else in the room, clearly someone else. And I think he refers to the whole thing going on as like the greater plan or something. It's something that he's very
The greater
specific.
good, the greater good, the greater good. It's like that stuff.
Uh
You okay?
yeah, I'm just trying to
Did
figure
you
out.
not like did you not like my hot fuzz reference?
No, I'm just trying to find exactly what he referred to all of this as. I'm trying to find it. I think it's an issue like 33 very quickly. Oh
It's the
wait, no.
big picture is what he's calling it.
Right. He refers to it as all of them are blissfully ignorant of the big picture. And he uses that um uh in big letterbox like letters, which means, oh, okay.
Because it's the name of the story.
So this whole side story is called The Big Picture. I get it. Um and he wants Knuckles to be led by Archimedes to Mount Fate. And at Mount Fate, he will figure out what's going on. And he says, just simply, appearances can be deceiving. We then go into the uh, backstory for Knuckles that is in Supersonic versus Hyper Knuckles, which very blatantly shows Knuckles' early years, where his father is basically leading him around the floating island, and he's saying,
Where he still had belief in the universe itself.
yeah, and I'm gonna just say what his name is. I believe they don't even say his name right now, but he so this character's name is Locke, and Locke's whole story is that he is the guardian before Knuckles. And he is basically leading him around the island and saying, like, everywhere the light touches is your realm, Simba. And
Yeah.
he brings him down he brings him down the secret passage into the Master Emerald chamber, and he says, "This is your legacy. You are supposed to make sure that the entire energy source of Mobius stays where it is. Do not let anything bad happen to this. I have protected this for years. You shall protect this for years. All of our family has protected this forever." And I was like, okay. And Knuckles is then taught something very simple. There's like a little floating orb that's like trying to like track them or something. And Locke asks him, "What are you gonna do about this situation?" And he goes, "Well, I'm gonna observe, making sure that everything's okay." I was like, "Well, what happens when it gets up close and personal?" It goes, "Well," and he just punches it and it explodes. And
Which is the only lesson Knuckle takes for the rest of his life.
yeah, and he says,
If too close, then punch.
and he goes, "I do not know what this is. I shall punch it because I'm not going to take any chances." And Locke is like, "You've forgotten the most important lessons I've taught you. You need to know your enemies before you fight them." And Knuckles almost takes this as sort of like a chastising remark, where it's like, "I know what I'm fighting. I can see it." A very simple meathead sort of like mentality for Knuckles, but it's very revealing that that's how he's always kind of assessed situations like this. And even in the
Yeah,
later games, this mindset actually carries on into the canon material, where Knuckles is not an idiot, he's very simple. He sees a problem, he analyzes the problem, he takes out the problem. And people will often label him as an idiot, but he just takes the shortest route to solve the problem. And this in its of itself is a problem, especially for someone that's trying to be the guardian of the Master Emerald, and he can't have things basically go wrong because he misjudges something and then he can't take them back. And it's what his dad is trying to teach him in this sort of moment. And then Locke jumps into a wall of fire and disappears.
yeah.
Good on you.
And wins the award for Best Dad of the Year. And he's in the contention. He's in some strong contention in the story.
Yeah, and so Knuckles from I'm gonna guess that he was around like uh I think he's supposed to be around like 10 at this point. He basically
Yeah,
gets
that's what I was
abandoned
thinking.
he gets abandoned by his father on this floating island, and he's been on this floating island ever since. He basically just like living it out and trying to make the best of the situation. And a lot of the times he does not pick good options. And he's kind of reminiscing on this as he goes, "Okay, it looks like I need answers. So let's go find
Yeah,
Archimedes." And that's basically where we leave it off. And to be
yeah,
honest, it's a really good starting place for Knuckles' side story. But again, a lot of the stuff that we have been dealing with in these side stories is a millstone around its neck. Because all of those side stories that I just kind of compiled very quickly, that wasn't the backstory with Knuckles' dad, was only 2 pages per issue. Like, it was so badly paced that I kind of had to explain them all at once to even remotely get any form of story out of it.
yeah. It's kind of what I was thinking you were doing. So I was like, I'm just gonna wait until we're at the end of this for them to kick off the Knuckles C story plots. Because yes, they were in the middle of the A and the B story, but they weren't the B story. There was no story in there.
Yeah, Uh,
I'm really glad I didn't interrupt you during that. I was like, I'm just gonna let this happen at the end of the podcast.
yeah. So my biggest problem with this whole thing is that we basically leave off on Sonic being in a weird state, Knuckles being in a weird state, and Rotor having a side story that effectively never gets resolved.
Yeah,
It's a very awkward set of
it's very
issues
sad.
in context. But on the bright side,
I mean, Bunny gets more resolution for her stories than Rogue ever did, and we didn't even realize her family were even characters.
yeah, I kind of feel
That's the
bad.
tragic part. Roder deserves better, man. He deserved much better.
I yeah, I don't really have anything else to add actually. Uh, anything any like final thoughts?
Um, no, I think we're pretty much good. Hopefully Joffrey won't make as big of an appearance in the next set of issues, but you know what they say about wishing and dreaming. It might not happen.
The next set of issues has the first issues of the Knuckles miniseries, not to be confused with Knuckles issue number one, but it's the Knuckles miniseries coming up is honestly like really fascinating. I haven't touched them in a while, so it's going to be fascinating to kind of reread them. But I
Hmm.
did notice that Mecha Madness is slowly creeping up behind it, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh, feels and stuff.
Anyway, see all y'all another time. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.